Good afternoon to all of you. Metropolitan, it's a great privilege to interact with a great spiritual leader who is also an acclaimed writer, missionary, statesman, and who has traveled across the globe, who has wrote extensively, spoke extensively on these subjects that we are going to talk today. Your Grace, the key words in focus today are knowledge, truth, and spirituality. Three terms that we hear quite often, but not together. However, these three terms have connection. What are your thoughts when you look at these three terms?
The problem, to begin with, using the words like truth. In the Bible, you have the statement, Pilate, someone who was with so much power and authority and everything, he asked this question to Christ, what is the truth? So it's one of the most complicated things. Truth, the word has the meaning built into it, if not subconscious or at least subliminal level, that it's the right thing to do, the correct thing to do. The result would be very good, beneficial, or whatever it is. But in a convergence culture that we are living in, the word truth itself has become kind of very a relative thing that, for you, you say, oh, that's the way you look at it. The way I look at it is different.
Truth, it means that truth differs from person to person, their perspective?
Yeah, the thing is, you see, once truth becomes a subjective reality, then each one decide what is truth for themselves. But it's like a law. If truth is based on absolute, and then you have to say, well, where do we get, or who is the absolute? How do we get that? And I think that's one of the biggest struggle we have in the worldwide phenomenon, that is in America or Europe or India. It is people are confused. People do not know what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do, and religion has so much to do with giving a sense of stability, knowing what is right and wrong. Depends on what religion, but most all religions has a sense of guidance. You do this. For example, don't hurt other people, don't steal, don't lie to people, be honest. Things like that.
Is the religion helping us to be stable, or in the recent times, or is it causing us to be unstable?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there is worldwide renewal of religions. But 25 years ago, it was more of a tribalism, return to tribalism, which all to do with a sense of belonging, that my life means something. All human beings want to do something significant and be part of something significant. But now, we have worldwide a vacuum so serious that people are kind of a transition, looking to find something beyond themselves. That, what I was saying a little ago, that is, what is truth? Okay, take it and put another way, where is God? What does He has anything to say about our life? And none of these things are understood by itself or isolated. If we have a creator, if He has moral codes that He give to us, then we are creation, we are subject to listen to that. Just like, the government here, Kerala government or Indian government or America or anywhere, you may feel like that's not the way you want to do it, but you better stop when the light turns red.
Right.
And I would say people use words they really don't think deep enough, like the word truth. If it benefits them, it's okay. Especially in our culture here, there is no real definition or concept of sin or wrong. If you are caught doing something bad, then you did wrong. You see, this is the kind of mixed up reality we have, and I think talk about a subject that really don't transform people to find peace or quietness or self-worth.
Fine.
That is...
Now, if I interrupt, now we have covered, I think, on truth. But then the spirituality is often related to religion, Metropolitan. But do you feel there should necessarily be a connection between these two terms, spirituality and religion? As we are witnessing many changes in our country in the recent times, there's a lot of uproar and confusions. And how do you think that religion is impacting our society? In fact, I think we are living in a world of religiosity at its peak. And if I say that it does signify the decline of spirituality, what do you opinion on that?
My personal thing is, being a religious person, leader of a church, I should be fighting for religion or, beliefs and faith and all that. But sad to say, when religion is used for the wrong purpose.
Which means that religion can be used for the wrong purpose.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But look at many countries. I will not name any country's name, but if you say something unkind about their religious book, or even whisper that, or somebody betray you, capital punishment. And there are places where you cannot talk about your faith, and if you do, which is against their faith. So, religion, in classical sense, is no more in reality in our culture. Religion is another way of gathering people around certain beliefs, and it's a return to tribalism kind of thing, and then they use it to gain power. And I personally know of some individuals that really are agnostics. They really don't believe in anything, but they do present themselves as very religious people. Why? Because majority of the people are illiterate and they do not know what's going on, and presenting themselves as religious people, they become part of that. There is a sense of belonging, but that is the wrong use of religion. And I think religion, in some ways, what really religion should do is make us better people, humble people, helping people, caring people, because
it should be for the general betterment of
take
mankind.
For example, the sun shines bright in the sky, the night moon and all the stars and the oxygen we breathe. We don't pay for any of those things. So God is the one who created this, which all religion says. Okay, if God is so giving and kind, shouldn't there be some sense of
gratitude,
kindness, and reflection of that God's nature in us, instead of killing each other? And so I would say what we call religion is really not religion. It is fanaticism. They're just using God, to get what they want.
So many have this question, Metropolitan. It is in fact an age-old question. as we now talk about our Christianity. Christianity has many churches, groups, denominations, traditions, and practices. And they are on rise too. Do we need too many new and newer churches to learn the message of Jesus Christ?
Well, it's interesting
When
you
we
ask
talk
the
about
question.
that, my question to you is that you also had a big transition to an Episcopal church.
Yes.
So how do you reason these things?
Here's the thing. I remember long ago when I was in Bangalore, one of the member of parliament, we were talking about something, and he said to me, he said, hey, I want to ask you a question. I said, I thought he was going to ask me some heavy duty, some spiritual, biblical question. He said, you see, we Hindus, we have thousands and millions of gods and goddesses. And we have temples all over the place. But we can go to all the temples and we don't have court cases against each other. But you Christians got only one God. Look like you got a million court cases against each other. So how do you explain that? He was asking me. Well, honestly, I didn't know how to answer him properly. But so your question, why so many, in Christian terms, denominations or groups? But here's the thing. Jesus Christ started the church. He's the founder in AD 33. And the church is started by all my reading, understanding, and research, at least for the 500 years of the early church. We can safely say that is the Orthodox church. I don't mean necessarily the Orthodox churches you see here, but Orthodox in the sense of the belief system and caring and loving and understanding and non-condemning. And but around 1050 AD, one of the leaders of the church in Rome decided they want to secede and make something different. And then came Martin Luther with
the Reformation, yes.
With the Reformation. And now we got 50,000 different denominations. Now here's the thing. Of course, the people are now trying to find out the heritage, especially
going back to the roots.
Go to the roots. And you can, take your blood and check your DNA and then go back and find your father. Maybe you'll find somebody 1,000 years ago lived, part of your family. They may not be in India or somewhere else. There is a reality of continuation. And so, if you trace back to the church, there may be thousands of people with your name, but that don't mean they are from your family tree. So that's the reason apostolic succession, or the church that the apostles or the early fathers of the faith communicated. Some people think churches are created by the Bible. It is not true. The church made the Bible. So once we begin to understand that, you understand, here you are, people are gathering for learning about whatever subjects we talk about and all those things. There must be 100,000 gatherings going on in all kind of places. That don't mean they are doing the Mathrubhumi this festival.
So actually, you're going to say that the traditional church has a great importance in Christianity.
That's not only great importance, that is the authentic.
That's so authentic.
Yes.
But that is a de-learning for you, if I am correct, because years before you were an evangelist, and it was totally different from what you are right now, Metropolitan. And now you have just associated yourself to an Episcopal church with Antiochian liturgy, whatever it is. So was that de-learning a long process?
See, I grew up in a Marthama church, but part of my family are the Orthodox, not because of that I became what I am. I went over to Europe and America and did my seminary studies, and finally it dawned on me that I need to find out what is the real church. And it took me 17 years of research and learning and growing. And so the word association it's not a bad word, but for us it was not like that. It was coming back to reality. That is, it is important for us to follow in the footsteps of the authentic church. And that's what happened to us.
That's quite an amazing answer. Thank you, Metropolitan. Now, another question that you have had an amazing journey over the years from Atmiya Yatra, a radio show, and you have been donning many hats, from an evangelist to a bishop to a metropolitan. But being a spiritual leader, Metropolitan, earlier a bishop and now a metropolitan, was that something the young KP Yohanan had set his eyes upon when he was, I think you wanted to join the team of missions with Operation Mobilization, if my reading is correct. Is that something you thought about or dreamt about, when you set your eyes to becoming a part of the team? Even I think from what I read, you were not allowed first to be part of the team, and then they were short by one number, and then you had to be a part of the team. You say it is all God's plan, like your own words, which I have quoted here from one of your blogs. It says, "Beginning denotes time, yet there is a beginning. That has no beginning, no time to mark it. Before time began, in eternity past. When time was not, our journey was planned. This year behind us was all in God's design, all good and bad to bless us with His blessing."
Well, I think that's from my poem book, Who Am I think. It is true. You see, like we sit here and talk and all these dear people here, but we don't realize this. Before the world began, in reality, if God is beyond time, space, and matter, is outside, everything, your past, present, future, everything is immediate present with Him. So He saw us sitting here talking exactly the words we are talking, and all these dear friends, we all are here. He knew us. This is the reason why Orthodoxy is so unique in it. We believe very strongly that all people are loved by God, and He created all of us, and He is not angry, vengeful. He continued to lead us, hoping we will find more and more of His purposes in life. And my journey, when I was a small boy, when I was taken to be baptized, as a tiny baby, my mother told our Achan, of my 6 boys, this one
is for the
we
Lord.
want to give to serve the Holy Church, and please pray for him, like that. And but so when I finished my high school, a neighbor lady who was from with very, very close families to us, a Hindu family, and she said, so now you did your high school, what are you going to do next? You're going to go to college or this, that, and I said to her, I really like to be Achan, but I don't think I'm qualified for that. That's too complicated a job. I don't think they will want me for that. Okay, then I said, the next thing, I wish I could be a teacher. See, when I was studying in high school for 3 years, I had a teacher, his name was Ayyappan. He was such an amazingly kind individual. I so desperately wanted to be like him. And so, a priest, I don't think I'm qualified for that. I could be a teacher. That was my thinking.
So you never had a passion for evangelism at the early stages?
No, I never saw myself qualified or able, because our achans, they're so elite and so different. I couldn't think of, at least for me at that time, I couldn't think I could do anything like that. But
Was that your socio background that held you back from thinking now?
Yeah, but my mother kept praying, as I know, that her prayer will be answered, that I would end up serving the church. That's our concept.
But if I interrupt, you had a passion for charity.
Yeah, you see, what happened is that I ended up joining this youth movement, first time leaving my state of Kerala to North India, Rajasthan, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, and all these places. And in Rajasthan, I spent 2 years. And then 6 months in Bombay, living, working with the slum people. I can't explain to you in words, but I was absolutely destroyed. Not just one time, but crying and tears became a normal part of my life when I saw the suffering and the hurt and the pain. And I remember in Rajasthan, winter time, we were 9 people on my team, and I was to go to the bazaar and buy vegetables and bring and all that, and that was my job during that few months. And I come back and I find people laying on the side of the road without any clothes and shivering. Then I would stop my rickshaw man and take my clothes and everything and give it to him and come back, just with my trousers. And often I would take my, one blanket I had to go back and give it to people. And one time, this man was taking me in his rickshaw. This 3-wheel rickshaw?
Right.
We still have them in Calcutta. Anyway, skin and bones. It's all rib cage sticking out. He was pedaling, and this was uphill situation. And I said, I can't believe he's doing it. I'm young and stronger than him. So I told him to stop it, and he stopped it. And he thought he did something wrong. I said, you come and sit in here. So he said, I don't see it. And I got on the pedal and start pedaling it and reached the destination. This man was completely in shock.
That passion you had for these downtrodden and poor people, that you have exhibited all through your life,
Yeah, because I think...
Even to the remotest part of India where people have not gone for charity.
Different people have different gifting and calling. And there are people here who I think are, people who write. And their stories their write is so significant in transforming people. Recently I was reading Sudha,
Sudha Murthy?
Sudha Murthy, several books I was reading recently. I was amazed by her telling these stories, and I'm captured by that. For me, I think God put something in me that naturally feels deeply hurt and sad and empathy toward people who are unfortunate. And the Slumdog Millionaire movie, I couldn't watch it the second time because I just emotionally couldn't handle it. Because I lived in Bombay.
You had something to connect with that movie.
Yeah, and we have 70,000 children now that we are caring for, educating free. This year, 2,400 graduated. And we don't make them Christians because they come to our center. Our goal is that they will be taught and educated, and many of them are going for medicine and lawyers and all that. They are supporting now with their money our children's project. And my hope is we'll be able to pick up 500,000 children eventually.
With all this passion that you have and people have seen, there's always an accusation which says that you have been selling charity. Even when you are really doing charity in the remotest part of India and even outside. How have you felt during that times have you ever felt any moment that I've been doing this, but this is what I'm getting?
Well, you see, I tell you a story. I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah,
when I was living in Germany, I bought a pen. I always liked fountain pen. I found out Mont Blanc is one of the best pens to buy.
It's one of the costliest
and I got, I think, $600 and paid and got that pen. And then from there, I was in the United States studying in college. And one day in my own private study, I was writing away with my pen. It's a very strange thing happened. I'm not charismatic or spooky person, very horribly rational. And I heard somebody almost saying I could hear, "So you like that pen?" And it's a stupid thing to do. I responded, really I did. Yes, I do like my pen. The next question I hear, "So who is going to use it 100 years from now?" It is very gentle, not bossy, not arrogant, and it just penetrated through my heart. And you won't believe this. This is an absolute truth. I took that pen and held it up and looked at it. And this question kept rolling in my head. Who is going to use it 100 years from now? And that was on the turning point of my life in 1979 in the United States. I said, this is dumb. I'm living in a mansion with all this stuff, caring for myself, this kind of things. And this is 100 years from now, I am not here. That was a turning point to the extent I said, I sleep on one bed, I eat from one plate, I wear one shoes. Why I should have all these other things? So my life was completely turned upside down. My wife, and this was the beginning of maybe the most important journey. I realized the only meaning for this life is how can I live my life so others can live. And there was a television interview long ago here in Trivandrum. This man said, "You must be the richest bishop in the world," or something like that. He said, "The truth is, if you really want to know, you are more wealthy than I am." Because I don't own anything like that, what you own. So what I'm saying, okay, it's not somebody's rich or poor, but it is, we must look always to demonstrate God and His love by our actions. I tell people, in your village, go and find out children who cannot go to school because they have no clothes or food or money, or somebody who is dying unnecessarily because they have no money to go to the hospital. Take them to the hospital, or practice giving your blood to help other people, and take your children to the slums of Bombay and other places so they can see the real world is not materialism. And I think our society is so shallow, so empty, that we are trying to fill it with material things. And we may give lip service to God and prayer, this and that, but it's all bunch of sham. I'm not talking about one religion, but generally speaking, that is the story.
But Metropolitan, unlike you, there are not many people who are lucky enough to have, to contribute society in such a large way. You've been blessed with TV. You were into TV channel, hospital, and schools. So, does money play an important role in charity and in the church growth?
I didn't hear the last part.
See, you said that your passion for charity, that you need to help people, but not many people are blessed with such a privilege to give back to the society. But you have been blessed to start an hospital, TV channel, and a lot of big institutions. So, isn't money an important fact? And how do you...
Yes, money is, it's like oxygen. It's important for us to live. Money is important. But here's the thing. When I had only a blanket...
so that faithfulness for a small
exactly.
thing...
We all should do what we can. I don't do all these things myself. I don't have the money for that. But our church, when you have several million people who are taught the same thing, they give their life. We got a medical doctor, one young man who finished his studies, and he went to a leper colony hospital in West Bengal and spent a whole year without one penny income to his name to serve. And I think people can do whatever they can do, but they should do whatever. Like, for example, I mean, people sitting here, I'm sure many of them got maybe a dozen, 2 dozen shirts and all kind of things. I think once in a while they have to go through the whole thing and say, okay, I just will keep 5 shirts and give the rest to poor people or people don't have any, and anonymously do it. And I think our situation is, to those much is given, much shall be required. We do have a church and a hospital, but in the hospital, couple of thousand people come a day as patients, but those who are poor, who cannot pay, they are given free treatment.
I know that. I'm aware of it.
And so if everybody does that, we do our part. And I don't think we are doing anything special. We just do what we are able to do.
So,
yeah.
From your conscience, you say you have been faithful for what has been handed over to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all there is. And I think my joy and happiness is this, that I'm not the only one doing it. All our people are taught to do it and they practice it. Not perfect, but, and if everybody does that, I was so surprised to meet with the Kuman and Ashayar, one time. We used to be not very good friends. We became good friends. I was so surprised. He never said this to anyone. He, from his own money or whatever way he can get help, take care of 30, 40 little children, orphan children. I was so amazed by that. Here is a man of complete different faith from me, but so quietly, doing that. There's several people I know who did that. So it just, all of us can do something. And I would say this, there's no sense in saying I believe in God or anything like that, but not care for people.
Now, since we are here for the literature festival, tell us about your literary interests, favorite authors or books. And do you find time reading books other than the one you...
Well, I do read books. I don't... when I was studying in college, I had to take a course, it's not optional, or speed reading. So I used to read 5 books a week, believe it or not. I don't do that anymore. Don't have time for that. I do read books, all kinds, not just Christian books, but philosophy, this, that, and everything else. But when I did the radio broadcast, 8 years long, every day doing it, not repeating what I said yesterday, it had a lot to do with God's mercy in helping me to read.
You have authored almost close to 275 books, if I'm correct. You have authored almost 275 books.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How do you grace, how does your grace as a writer? Are you a disciplined writer, or how do you find time for writing?
No, what I do is that it is like a fish in the water. Day and night I live in this atmosphere of others around me. That poem I wrote,
which I quoted earlier,
had to do with the couple of beggars I ran into, and the opportunity came to explain really who am I. Then I used their story to write the poem. So where do I find time to write books? Basically, it is, right now I was flying from London to Delhi, and I think I wrote 50 cameos about Lent season. Every year I do that, and last year I did that, and this year. So that maybe is like a driver. I do have this liking in writing things to help people, and I think that's what happens. Yeah.
They say we are living in a post-truth society. Each person has his or her own truth. Mm-hmm. So what is truth for you?
For me, I would say this by saying, please don't misunderstand me. For me, my entire life truth is based on the one person I follow day and night as my example, and as the one I live for, that is Christ. People ask me sometimes, what on earth are you doing? Why you do this? I mean, you wrote all these stuff and you don't take any money for this and that. I say, it's all because of Jesus. And he showed the way for me to love people and care for people. And he never came to start a religion. He came to show the way to live. And for me, truth is embodied in the person of Christ. And Mahatma Gandhiji was asked the question by Dr. E. Stanley Jones at St. Stephen's College, doing a conversation. He said, Gandhiji, what must the Christians do in India so that more people will believe in Christ? And Gandhiji said, Dr. Jones, you tell Christians do nothing but live just as Jesus lived. Don't have to say a word, and people will follow him. So everyone got their truth. They live. I don't condemn people for what they believe. Anything. They all are God's children. But for me personally, everything I am revolves around, what would Christ do, and how, if he's walking on earth right now, how he would think and do things. That's my life.
That's about it. How have you taken all the allegations that have come across all your life? How have you taken it?
Well, somebody wrote a blog saying that I drive the latest, costliest, most expensive, fancy sports car. Things like that. The truth of the matter is I drive a car. It is a 1962 Volkswagen Bug. But that's the only car I own in life. And so I used to feel so hurt and so angry and upset when all these allegations, criticism that I'm doing this and that, all those things. But then I came to the place, what am I looking for? Am I looking for reputation? And I said to myself, no, I must die to all my reputation so I can be real. And what people say, if there is even 1% truth in what they say, my enemies, my commitment is to listen to that and make corrections on that. And I don't, a lot of stuff people say about, especially in the social media. I mean, recently I read a book. Bad news travels 8 times faster than truth with the social media. And some say 6 times. But whatever it is, this is this Facebook and all this stuff is a terrible thing that people are being hurt and committing suicide and all that. And now I think personally I really don't have any. I remember in my head, or people say all kind of things about me, that I'm taking a lot of money, I'm very rich and this and that. But then
there is always a shroud of mystery around that. See, now, like as you said, yours is Christ-oriented attitude, believe in the Christ teaching. So, was there a need for a new church when there is no dearth of churches in India? So that you have come out?
Yeah, basically it is like asking the question, do we need 100 families, with 100 different family names? If there need to be in every generation or every 50 years, 100 years, a new church should be there with the same DNA. They are not conflicting, stealing, fighting, criticizing. There is, because the perpetuation, like you go back, a few thousand years, your great, whatever great parents were there, and you continue to flow in the same DNA. And so our church, we Believers Eastern Church happened to be at the time and place where we needed to do things where no one else is doing.
So, from the Believers Church, why was it a need to affix Eastern into it?
Because, why you ask these kind of difficult questions?
Because,
well, I tell you what, Bible is Eastern book, and Jesus is Eastern. He's not Western. I lived in the Western countries, and I got educated there. It's all fine. But I'm I'm deeply committed to the Eastern way of thinking and the church. And I think the Western theology that was brought into Africa and these countries may have caused some damage. I don't want to be...
It means that we should go in line with the traditions that was given to us.
Yes, it's not... See, the church has... This is a church language. You have the teachings of Christ and apostles. Then you have the holy traditions. Like we got a meal here, and there's no explanation what you do with that. But there's a fork and knife, and now the food is explained, but nobody says anything about how you hold a fork. I first went to Europe, I didn't know how to handle that thing. So holy traditions are the practical things you do in order to understand the meal.
The meaning of the...
Yeah, exactly. So then there is a thing called the ecclesiastical traditions. That is different churches, because of cultural differences, different times. Like there are churches there, the bishops don't marry. That has nothing to do with the direct Bible teaching, but that is the right thing for them to do because they chose for their reasons. Yeah. So I would say at least we should be sober to stay with the apostolic traditions and the teachings. That don't mean I don't like you or somebody else.
That's being a very diplomatic answer, but still it answers to the queries of a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And I think we have a little minute more. So when people talk about you, Metropolitan, I feel there exists a certain element of surprise and mystery. KP Yohan earlier, it was all on the news. I think it was during the last, end of 90s or something that you established as a big organization in Kerala. So it was a surprise element for people. KP Yohan, Atmiya Yatra, has come with a big institution. A little boy from Naranam growing up to travel extensively across the globe, India and US, then running the most successful organization. How do you explain this journey and demystify yourself? And one more thing before I want you to answer. Your recent book title, the title of the book was Who Am I? It was released last year. So my question, and the question of every mind that I can read from here, every curious mind here is that, who are you?
Everything you said is true. Somebody called me up and told me all the many things I have done and said, no human being in one lifetime can do all this. And all the things that person said, I did not deny. If somebody says to you, wow, you're a good-looking man, and you got black hair, and he cannot say, no, I'm an ugly person. No. But I realize and live with it, that really who am I? I tell you who am I. In the night, before I go to bed, this cassock and all this comes off. I wear a lungi, and I have my kanji and paira and pickles, and just normal brush my teeth and have my time of prayer and things like go to bed next morning, get up, brush my teeth. That's me. But all this other stuff that I've been doing, it is like a vehicle that moves on. I don't plan any of those things. These things just...
It's all divine purpose.
I don't think so. Honestly, I think God is doing all these things. Not I think, it's true. Because I can write a 1,000-page book on this. That is, there's nothing we have done or I've been doing that I sat down and thought through. One of my books sold over 40 lakh copies, 4 million copies. And I remember I did that in 1 week. And I didn't, take any money out of that, by the way. I just want to make sure that you know that too. But somebody else maybe could not do that, and it was not something I said, okay, I'm going to write this book. This is going to become no, nothing like that. And God had a plan that book will be used to help so many poor people and do things that that otherwise I could not do. So any of these things I'm telling you, like for me to be the bishop of the Metropolitan, this is an absolute honest truth. I never ever imagined that this is something I want to do. I had no other choice. 2 years I waited to make the decision. I didn't want to. We had somebody else I wanted to do. But in the end I had to say, I'm giving up what I want for others, and that's what happened.
That's a very open answer. Thank you for taking time to be with us, to demystify yourself. And one thing, Metropolitan, apart from the questions that we have asked and shared with each other, we've been doing an amazing charity all across India. From stories that I've heard, it's very touching. I think more than a bishop or a metropolitan, people connect you as a great philanthropist. What do you have to say about it?
My favorite title that I like is the word servant.
Talking about that, now this is an off-the-beat question. Bible talks a lot about servanthood and all. But nowadays, we have a lot of seminars on leadership. Why is it so?
I don't want to use the word fake. Vitamins are supplement. That they are not meals. And we are living in a generation where microwave type of thinking, we study how to be a leader, how to do this, how to make money, and people think it's a superficial world. It is not like that. And church especially, Jesus said this: those who are the number one among you, like a bishop or metropolitan, whatever. By the way, Holy Father, Pope, when he signs official letters, he uses the ending, servant of servants, then sign his name. And I think Jesus said, the greatest among you should be servant of all. We call politicians ministers. What does that mean? A servant. But unfortunately, we are losing our culture. The Western culture, think about Alexander the Great and Kennedys and all kind of famous names, but we think about Buddha, we think about Mahatma Gandhiji, we think about Mother Teresa, and that is biblical culture and Eastern culture, and I'm happy with that. But you have to have title and clothes and stuff like that. That don't mean your heart goes after those things.
Any questions from the audience?
Eastern Christianity, which is like Eastern Orthodox Christianity, was in Kerala since the 1st century. And when the colonizers came in the 16th century, Portuguese and so on and so forth, the authentic Indian Christianity has been diminishing, and more Western Christianity is taking over. So do you feel like in 20-30 years, by 2050, the entire origin of Malayali Christianity, which is Orthodox Eastern Christianity, will be gone and taken over by Western Christianity, which is more of imperial Christianity?
The question of Orthodox, they have Eastern Orthodox, there's German Orthodox, there is Russian Orthodox, there is Syrian Orthodox, but all Orthodox, they do have the basic fundamental same beliefs and practice. So the future or the church, if that's what the question is about. Um, from my research and readings all over the world, there is a resurgence in Christianity, more people following and looking toward and becoming more orthodox in their practice. In Australia, that is true. In the United States, that is true. India, I do not know how strong that is, but there is, instead of saying orthodox, there is at large everywhere people are looking for something authentic and real going back to history, and that is more significant.
Holy Father, hi. It's really nice to be you in this session and see you like this. I have been hearing the Atmiya Yatra channel, your radio clippings and your site. It's quite wonderful what the Believers Church as such is doing now. But I have been hearing your talk for the last hour. So what you were talking was that religion was for the basic motto of the religion is for the betterment of the people. But at the present scenario, do you think that religion is going to be for the betterment? And as we were talking about the charity, about the good things that all the religions are doing, is again for a motto. Why the missionaries came to India was to colonize, was to Christianize people. So why the present government is, they are probably going to put up acts against conversion again in the North India, all those sites. So do you really think, I think at this point, religion is kind of dividing people. Even in Christianity, there are congregations, numerous amounts of congregation, be it Orthodox, be it the Protestants. At any side, they are dividing. Again, another question that comes in, you seem to be very diplomatic, you seem to be so neutral, but I am kind of depressed on that side, because the Bible which I read, I saw Jesus whipping onto the church, on the Jerusalem church, and he was rather speaking against the atrocities that the Christian, that the Jew culture had on the church. So should you, you told that you wanted to replicate Jesus, you wanted to be like Jesus. Don't you think that there is a need to talk against these negative things that is happening in the Kerala scenario? There are a lot of fights in name of church. Be it Orthodox, be it Jacobite, be it anywhere. There are rapes happening. There are land mafias happening. So while all these things are happening in terms of church, don't you think being a very renovated, very eminent leader of the Christian church, Believers Church, very renovative, don't you think that there's a need to question against?
There's only one relevant thing which
and
you asked.
one more thing, last. Another thing, from the basic understanding, about the basic culture that every nation builds up is kind of based on religion in my reading. So there is still a divide between the men and the women again. So what do you think? Should we be reformed on that terms too, concerning the church, concerning the religion as such?
To summarize the question.
He asked 3 questions.
So to summarize, I think this question is religion good for mankind and society?
Your questions, you're a thinking person. If you think that is being diplomatic, I think you are thinking the thoughts of millions of people without any doubt. I like Shashi Tharoor when he said the statement, all those who are born in India are Hindus. Hinduism is not a religion, it is our culture. And I personally think religion should not be used as an objective reality to gain power by any group. And I think our constitution agrees very clearly faith and your belief is a personal choice, not forced on anyone. And I do not think anyone should use any means to force directly, indirectly to change people's faith and become another religion. I think it's a wrong thing to do. Freedom is violated. The other thing, Jesus, he got mad one time, but 99 times he embraced the fallen, the failures, the prostitutes, and the hurting, and he loved them. And if I can succeed doing little more things, he did kindness to people. Maybe one time I can get mad at people, and someday.
Thank you, Metropolitan, for the wonderful time and for the freewheeling conversation that we have had. Though it was a bit diplomatic, but thank you, Metropolitan. It was
I learned from you. Well, thank you so much. Buddha said this, and Dalai Lama said the same thing. What is your religion? They asked. They answered, kindness. Let's learn to be more kind to others, and that is more important.